We love this town. We love when Jedediah graces us with her presence.
I've been having a blast.
That's right. We've been
Time
talking
flies on this show. It really does.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
3 hours down, 1 hour
One
to go.
to go.
We're glad you're with us. You know, I can't believe we're debating Santa Claus.
I know.
Isn't there already a
Nothing
Mrs.
is
Claus?
sacred.
Do you really not believe it? I mean, we kind of debate all of these things.
We do
now.
debate all
People
these
want
things.
to pick and pick and pick. Now you want to pick at Santa.
Well, email
I
us.
know.
What should Santa's tattoo be? Because
Yeah.
the study said about 20% of Americans think Santa should have a tattoo.
We
I
the
agree
people.
with that, actually.
Yeah.
Well,
It could be anything.
It could be a tattoo of you, I said earlier. You never know. Could happen.
I'm a holly and jolly. It's true.
all right.
All right, Ed, are we on
there's
to
a
some
lot of
serious
news
things?
breaking. We've got the Obamacare ruling we're going to get to, but we also have the possibility of a partial government shutdown that's looming for the end of this coming week. Remember how this week started. That extraordinary Oval Office meeting where the president put it on the line and said face-to-face with Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer, both of whom wanted to take the cameras out of the Oval Office. He said, no, we're going to have transparency. We're going to have the American people see that you want to not give me what I've promised the American people for nearly 2 years, which is just not even the whole wall, but a $5 billion down payment on building the wall.
And the media painted it as, oh, this was a terrible moment for Trump. I thought he did great. I actually thought it was great television, a great moment. And look, this is one of his key issues. This is the issue he campaigned on. He should be completely digging his heels in on this issue and not settling for anything. I'm not a fan of delaying because I feel like every time you delay, you kick the can down the road and you never get the border security.
You're right. I mean, there are seminal moments, there are defining moments, there are revealing moments. This was all of those wrapped into one. I could be for a delay through Christmas and New Year's just because maybe you don't need that noise. But if you don't do it in January while you still hold the House, then you're never going to do it. And that's exactly what Senator Lindsey Graham said about the president's fight for $5 billion for the wall. Listen.
More than okay for the president to make a reasonable request of the Congress and stick to his guns. He ran on securing our border. The Democrats all voted, 44 of them did, in February of 2018, this year, for $25 billion for the wall as part of a larger deal. Now they won't give him $5 billion that could be well spent. This is arrogance on their part. They hate Trump. They're overreading their mandate.
Lindsey Graham for days has been trying to expose the hypocrisy of the left, pointing out that just months ago, in exchange for a DACA deal, Democrats voted for I think it was about $20 billion for the wall. Now we're talking about 1/4 of that. We're saying $5 billion. In terms of kicking the can down the road and the possibility that Jedediah mentioned, there's now a report in Politico and elsewhere suggesting that maybe the president and congressional leaders in both parties will sort of say, okay, let's have a timeout. Let's get this past the Christmas holiday. Everybody wants to go home. He wants to go to Palm Beach. Democrats and Republicans want to go to their homes. They want to celebrate the holidays with family and then back at it in January. But the question is, does the president lose leverage by then?
He might.
If you drag it out.
You know what the American people want is the wall that was promised. Republicans didn't deliver it. This is the last moment to do it. The other part of that exchange, which was revealing to me, is when Chuck Schumer just straight up said, I don't think walls work. We don't need a wall. This is the same guy who talked about illegal immigration and used to be for a wall back in the day before the progressives took over his party. Well, we had Aaron Cohen on. He's a former member of the Israeli Special Operations Counterterrorism Unit. He talked about Israel. Israel's got walls. Turns out they work. Listen.
Stripped away of all the political nonsense and all of the emotion that's associated with a wall is just a divider between good and bad. That's the way we look at it in Israel. They built this wall. It was a little contentious in certain parts of the West Bank, but it ended up reducing the amount of terror attacks from 75 the prior year by the end of 2000 down to less than a dozen. The fact is it works.
Border, there were 55,000 folks coming in. It went down to under a dozen. 55,000 to 11 because of a wall.
I think this is a winning point with Americans, but you have to get it done because this is something Republicans promise and promise and promise year after year, and no one does it. And President Trump campaigned on this. He's been very passionate about this issue. If he delays, he is going to be held accountable by a lot of conservatives out there.
I totally agree with you. This is a defining moment for this presidency, whether or not who blinks first, and it can't be the president.
So in the last midterm elections, which was sort of a split decision in terms of the House and the Senate, there were some in the president's base upset that they had not followed through, the Republicans on the Hill, on funding for the wall, getting that done. There was also frustration about not fully repealing Obamacare. But on the other hand, by the president actually succeeding in removing the individual mandate, that might have actually led to the destruction of Obamacare, because that brings us to a Fox News alert, where a federal judge in Texas is now striking down Obamacare, the entire law saying all of it, not some of it, all of it, because of the individual mandate coming down, is now unconstitutional.
That's right. You heard it. Obamacare unconstitutional, according to a judge in Texas. The ruling comes just one day before today's enrollment deadline for coverage next year.
Garrett Tenney is live in Washington with reaction. Garrett.
Hey, good morning, y'all. Yeah, and like Ed just mentioned, back in 2012, the Supreme Court upheld Obamacare as constitutional because the penalty for not having the insurance made it a tax. Well, last year, Congress got rid of the individual mandate as part of the tax reform bill. And last night, U.S. District Judge Reed O'Connor agreed with a coalition of 20 states that without the individual mandate, Obamacare cannot be allowed to stand, writing in part, the individual mandate is no longer fairly readable as an exercise of Congress's tax power and continues to be unsustainable under Congress's interstate commerce power. The court therefore finds the individual mandate, unmoored from a tax, is unconstitutional. Well, President Trump was quick to celebrate that ruling, tweeting, "As I predicted all along, Obamacare has been struck down as an unconstitutional disaster. Now Congress must pass a strong law that provides great health care and protects pre-existing conditions. Mitch and Nancy, get it done." Well, a number of Democrat attorneys general are already planning to appeal this ruling to the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals, and both sides expect it will then eventually go to the Supreme Court. The High Court has upheld Obamacare twice already, and it's important to remember that it was Chief Justice Roberts who sided with the court's 4 liberal judges in the decision on the individual mandate. So all eyes will be on him if the court hears this case. Until then, and while this court process plays out, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, though, tells us this latest ruling will not have any impact on coverage in 2019 or the sign-up process that ends tonight.
Ted, I appreciate that report. Thank you.
Thank you.
Which means if it's not being dealt with in 2019, it's front and center in 2020.
It sure will be. Why? This is an honest question. Why is it that when a judge rules on something related to a travel ban or something related to the president, it immediately stops? But when a judge rules that Obamacare is unconstitutional, it keeps going? No, I'm not a lawyer. I don't know. Maybe you guys do. Well, honest question.
It gives them an excuse, though, because then they say, oh, we'll deal with this next year. No, you have to. Republicans, you should have been dealing with this 5 years ago. And you already have Democrats reacting to this ruling. They're coming out strong. You have Pelosi calling it an all-out assault. Schumer, it will be a disaster. Senator Murphy, this is a 5-alarm fire. So you see all the tactics are going to come out blaming Republicans. They don't care about your health care, all of the talking points. So you have to be ready to come through and say, no, we do care, and here's our proposal.
Well,
because people care about solutions ultimately. They care about health care for themselves and for their families. And all they want, many people aren't affiliated with a party. All they want is someone who's going to get stuff done and make their costs go down.
And that kind of answers Pete's question somewhat, because the travel ban, the question there would be, that was sort of proposed and the president was moving forward with an executive order, but it was sort of new policy. And so if a federal judge says stop, you can sort of halt it. Whereas in this case, it's a full-fledged law. So how do you unwind that in 24 hours? You can't.
You can't. No, of course it continues. I was sort of making a larger point. But at the same time, you're right. This will be litigated in 2020. Republicans did what they could. I mean, you got the thumbs down from McCain on the skinny repeal, so that never happened. But you at least got the mandate gone, which has led to the unraveling. Prices have gone up. Healthcare has not gotten better. That's why it's a top issue. Democrats created that issue. The question is, can you litigate it and keep it in their court and then propose a solution that brings costs
before
down?
they can now bring in Medicare for All, which is a complete disaster for everyone. If they get that, it's really big.
All right, you want to talk about a disaster. Look at this story involving a Green Beret, basically an American hero, Major Matthew Goldstein, who was facing down the enemy in Afghanistan, going after the Taliban, taking the fight to them directly. All he did was he did an interview back with Bret Baier in 2016, and then did an interview as well with the CIA in terms of looking for a job, where he pointed out that after seeing a Taliban bomb maker take out 2 Marines, he decided to say, I'm going after this bomb maker. I want to make sure he doesn't kill anyone else.
No, that's right. 2010, this guy's a Green Beret in Afghanistan. He's a recipient of the Silver Star, by the way. They don't give away Silver Stars. This guy's a hero. 2 of his fellow Marines, as you said, Ed, killed by a bomb maker. He took action into his own hands. The military's taking issue with this. He went out and said, I'm going to kill this bomb maker because it's going to save American lives. He was honest about it. In fact, he sat down, Ed, as you said, with our own Bret Baier in 2016 and was forthright. Hey, I was there. I made a call. Listen.
Did you kill the Taliban bomb maker?
Yes.
Willingly offered up these details
at
the CIA, right?
That's correct.
And that's where it all started.
pretty much. You can construe it as a law enforcement mindset. There's limits on how long you can hold guys, and you realize quickly you make things worse. It is an inevitable outcome that people who are cooperating with coalition forces, when identified, will suffer some terrible torture or be killed.
Everything he said is spot on. The catch and release program means you release people you know are guilty because you're not doing enough paperwork on the battlefield. And then the friendly Afghans or Iraqis who gave you that information, when that person gets released, they go after your friend and kill him. So it's a double whammy. The guilty guy is free. The guys that help you get killed. And you have to make this tough decision. He made the decision to put that Taliban member in the dirt, ultimately better for our security. Now the Pentagon is going after him. And I know the rules. I know how these things go. So there's a Special Operations Command spokesman who put this statement out, said Major Matthew Goldston's immediate commander has determined that sufficient evidence exists to warrant the preferral of charges against him. So this is ongoing. We're hoping to get more on his side of the story.
And Jedediah, he could get the death penalty if he is found guilty.
Yeah, I mean, this is wartime, and we talked last hour, Pete, you were talking about bureaucracy and the rules, and of course everyone respects the rules, but you have to understand you're at war. These people that are risking their lives for us are making these decisions on a moment's notice, sometimes trying to protect their safety, the safety of our men and women, the safety of our country sometimes. So I just think this sounds like a really harsh potential punishment for what was done here. And the fact is he came forward. He was transparent. They wouldn't have known about this unless he was willing to come forward and be honest. That has to count for something.
There are guys like this, guys like Eddie Gallagher, a Navy SEAL, guys like Clint Lawrence, an Army lieutenant, who made tough, difficult calls that you and I don't have to make because they're doing it on the battlefield. But you guys are chiming in this morning on this story. An email from Tim said, as a former infantry sergeant in South Vietnam in '67, thank you for your service. I found it appalling that our government would file these charges. In combat, sometimes you have to make decisions to save your men. That was my greatest responsibility, Barr.
Well said. And Dana emails the following. Disgraceful that any combat vet would face a penalty for what they've had to do in the name of war and freedom.
Yeah,
you got me all fired up this morning.
You were fired up.
These are cases we
have
have to review. Rules of engagement, lawyers get involved.
That's right.
Things go sideways.
Yeah.
A lot more coming up.
All right. Well, did Michael Flynn really lie to the FBI? New documents show agents didn't think he did it intentionally. Geraldo Rivera says it was a purge.
Interior Ryan Zinke, you see him there, will be leaving the administration at the end of the year after having served for a period of almost 2 years. Ryan has accomplished much during his tenure, and I want to thank him for his service to our nation. We'll see if he's adding to that. There's a ... as if there's more. Here's the key, is that Secretary Zinke has been under investigation. The Justice Department was looking at an investment he had, among other things. This is going to raise more questions about, look, on one hand, there's always turnover, especially 2 years in, after a midterm election. So we're going to see that. We see a new chief of staff coming into the White House. But given the allegations have been raised against Secretary Zinke, there's a lot of people digging into that, and that's going to be a question in the days ahead.
Yeah, I mean, a decorated Navy SEAL has been there for a couple of years, which is a pretty standard period of time for a cabinet member. Took on some issues in a straightforward manner. We don't know the reason at this point, but we'll
breaking right now. So let's bring in Fox News correspondent at large, Geraldo Rivera. He's here to talk about a whole bunch of issues. But a quick reaction, if you will, because we also have Mick Mulvaney coming in as the incoming chief of staff. Chris Christie had been talked about as a possibility and pulled out. Democrats are trying to say, at least, that nobody wants the job like that. Now we see Zinke leaving the administration abruptly. What's your reaction, sir?
Well, I think in Zinke's case particularly, Ed, you had a guy who was carrying a lot of baggage. They caught him in a couple of conflicts. There were allegations that he was double dealing his policies toward wildlife and some of the preserves and the environment and so forth as Secretary of Interior has really caused a lot of friction with critics of the Trump administration. So I'm surprised Zinke has clung to his position as long as he has. In terms of the budget director taking over as White House chief of staff, I think that's a great move. He's the one guy, Mulvaney, with absolutely no baggage as far as I can see. He's, I think that was his strongest suit, that he's non-controversial.
Sure.
Nobody doesn't like him. I think it was a very sound choice, a very sober, reasonable guy.
So put a button on it. The president also just tweeted a second ago that the new Interior Secretary will be announced this coming week. So we'll be hearing that as well. But obviously a lot of other big issues he's confronting.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, obviously, there was a tweet that caught our eye from Rudy Giuliani talking about Michael Flynn and the investigation into him. Rudy, the president's lawyer, tweeted this. The FBI 302s of General Flynn interviews show Comey and Strzok were not searching for the truth, but setting a perjury trap for Flynn. It included misleading him about getting a lawyer, not refreshing his recollection, and filing a false statement charge when FBI thought it wasn't. Geraldo, your take on the treatment of Michael Flynn?
I think it was abysmal. We have in our minds an image that, okay, you're going to talk with profound consequences to federal agents. So you think that, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? You think that that's what happens. And you also think that if someone's the target of an investigation, that they get Miranda warnings. You know, you have the right to an attorney if you can't afford one, will provide one. In General Flynn's case, it just seems that they bent over backwards to screw this guy.
Yeah.
They discussed among themselves the anti-Trump forces within the FBI. With
him. He now faces several charges. Again, thankfully, nobody hurt. Pete?
All right, well, it's been nearly 1 year since the horrific shooting at the high school in Parkland, Florida, which left 17 dead.
And now a Florida commission looking into the massacre recommends arming teachers and boosting school security to protect children.
That's right. In Polk County, Florida, Sheriff Grady Judd is on that public safety commission. He joins us live now. Good to see you, sir. I wonder, what is your expectation in terms of what the commission is going to recommend and what is going to, beyond arming teachers and how that's going to be implemented?
We worked on our recommendations that will be forwarded to the governor and the legislature January the 1st. And what we said is if teachers volunteer and want to be armed and pass the background, the psychological, and the very strict training, then they should be allowed to carry a firearm. Think about this. We know that Deputy Scott Peterson from the Broward Sheriff's Office did not run in. But from the time he was noticed to the time he arrived at the building was just less than 2 minutes. Already, 21 people had been shot and 9 students killed.
Wow.
When seconds count, minutes don't matter. We need somebody there in the building that second that can protect the students.
Well said. When seconds count, minutes don't matter. Here's a couple of the key aspects of what the commission recommended. More school security funding. Arming school teachers based on certain qualifications, as you noted, lock campus doors and gates, and set up code red procedures. So now will schools opt into this program? What latitude will different school districts have?
We already have Senate Bill 7096 that was passed last year by the legislature that gave the schools a lot more authority and responsibility. Believe it or not, there was no criminal or civil penalties attached to that. And the schools, can you believe it? Listen, are still refusing to implement some of those safety plans to protect the children. The people we're trying to protect most are the children and the educators, and we're getting the most pushback from some of them in some areas of Florida. So we're going to ramp up our game this next legislative session and ask our legislators to make the schools engage with us to keep children safe.
Sheriff, obviously, there are many who oppose measures like this. I've worked in the classroom as a teacher. Obviously, it's a very complex environment sometimes in these classrooms. People have concerns. Could a student get a hold of a weapon? Could the dynamic in the classroom get heated and lead to an unfortunate circumstance, some of the things that are brought up? But Florida Representative Ted Deutsch actually released a tweet with his commentary saying there is no evidence that arming teachers will make our students safer. There are many stories of students being accidentally hurt when teachers have guns in their classrooms. Reminder, MSD Commission took no testimony on arming teachers, but recommended it anyway. What's your response to that?
My response is he's a politician. He's not a researcher. He's not a law enforcement officer. And obviously, he hasn't read and seen the data that's been presented toward this commission. So he's interested in headlines. I'm interested in saving children's life. And we can do that. And let me underscore, if a teacher's uncomfortable or doesn't want to have a gun, they should never have a gun. No one is making them. But what we're saying is we know and we see empirical evidence all across the country where teachers and administrators have run into a fight without a gun, without any protection, to save their students from someone shooting them. So why wouldn't we at least give them a chance?
Sheriff, we have less than 1 minute, but Democrats also, as you know, raise the issue of gun control. So please answer that as well. So in this case, you're saying let's, with the proper background searches and whatnot, arm teachers in some cases. What's your response when they say we should also do more to keep guns out of the hands of kids?
Well, here's what I say. We have laws in the state of Florida that clearly say that children can't possess firearms unless they're in the presence of their family, that parents have to lock up their firearms at home away from the children. But here's what's important. We don't have a better solution. And we hear about gun control. Well, drugs are illegal in this country. How's that working for us? So my suggestion is once outlawing drugs gets rid of drugs, then come back and talk to us about outlawing firearms.
All right.
Sheriff.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Brady Judd. Thank you very much, sir. Appreciate it.
All right, that plan will be presented on January 1, so we'll be watching it closely. Meanwhile, another Fox News alert. Yet another shakeup in the administration. The Interior Secretary, Ryan Zinke, will now be stepping down at the end of the year. That just broke a moment ago. Dr. Sebastian Gorka worked in the White House. He's here to react to that and all the other changes live next.
Plus, Clay Aiken and Ruben Studdard reuniting from their American Idol days. They are here on Fox and Friends.
Outstanding. And is it time to rebrand Santa?
What?
Some people want him to carry an iPhone, get tattoos, use Amazon Prime to deliver gifts, and maybe even just be gender neutral.
What?
Your comments, they're pouring in.
Oh, can't wait to
read
read them. Ryan Zinke is stepping down. Multiple ethics investigations going on right now.
The president tweeting this: Secretary of Interior Ryan Zinke will be leaving the administration at the end of the year after having served a period of almost 2 years. Ryan has accomplished much during his tenure, and I want to thank him for his service to our nation. The Trump administration will be announcing the new Secretary of the Interior next week. Here to react, let's bring in Dr. Sebastian Gorka, former Deputy Assistant to the President, Fox News national security analyst, and best-selling author. Doctor, thank you very much for being here. Your reaction to Ryan Zinke leaving the White House?
Well, I'm saddened. I consider Ryan to be a personal friend. He was on a mission to make federal lands more accessible to the American citizen. He's a patriot, a hero, former SEAL, of course. Just a few months ago, we met at the Lincoln Memorial, and he was so kind to take a group of tourists, Americans who were just there visiting Washington, underneath the memorial to see the catacombs underneath. It was a great experience. He clearly loves this country. But, you know, it's two years in any administration is a long time. In the Trump administration, I guess it's like dog years. It's the equivalent of being there for like 10 years.
Doctor, I want to ask you about another shift with Mick Mulvaney replacing John Kelly as acting chief of staff. What kind of change do you think that will bring? Many talking about how he's a budget hawk. A lot of conservatives getting really excited about that. What do you expect to see from him?
I am very, very excited about this. When we heard the news about General Kelly, I said there's only 3 requirements for a chief of staff. That's all you have to hit. Number 1, you have to be loyal to the MAGA, the Make America Great Again agenda, and have really good relations with the president. You have to have a simpatico relationship. Secondly, you really have to know how the building operates. You have to be efficient in terms of running the White House. And thirdly, you have to be a stone cold operator when it comes to Capitol Hill and know which levers to pull and which buttons to press. Guess what? Mick Mulvaney meets every single requirement. I know he's doing great stuff over at OMB. I hope Mick Mulvaney isn't just the acting chief of staff for the president. I hope after January he becomes the permanent chief of staff, because he is perfect for that role.
Dr. Gorka, we'll have to leave it right there. Merry Christmas a little early. I understand you're launching a new radio show in the new year. Is that right?
I am. January 1st, America First, 3 to 6, East Coast, 12 to 3 on the West Coast on the Salem Radio Network. Very excited. Merry Christmas, guys.
Congratulations.
All right, Dr. Gorka,
Merry Christmas.
good luck with the new show.
Merry Christmas.
Thank you.
We've got some headlines for you now. Johnson & Johnson stock takes a $23 billion plunge after a damaging report goes public. A Reuters story claims the company knew its baby powder contained asbestos for decades. The embattled business has faced thousands of lawsuits alleging the baby powder causes cancer. Johnson & Johnson calls the report an absurd conspiracy theory. A sheriff's office puts up a Christmas tree with blue ornaments in honor of police officers killed in the line of duty. Boone County, Indiana Sheriff Mike Nielsen joined us earlier, explaining how the office came up with the idea.
It hit close to home for us this year when we lost one of our own. The goal here is to make sure that we pay the ultimate tribute to these officers that have given their lives to hold that thin blue line.
The tree has 142 ornaments for each police officer killed this year. And does Santa Claus need an image makeover? A new survey asking people if the jolly fellow needs to be modernized is sparking heated responses. About 23% think Santa should have an iPhone. Others think he should have tattoos, go on a diet, and even be gender neutral. Your comments have been pouring in on all of this morning. Andy says Santa today is probably delivering presents with drones from a newer, warmer headquarters in the Bahamas. And Amanda writes, his name is Santa Claus. He's a man. He likes milk and cookies. End of story. And here's what you get for trying to take nice Christmas photos with your furry friends. This couple's starting a Twitter frenzy asking anyone else have trouble getting their cats to pose for their Christmas card? Dozens responding like this woman tweeting, yeah, it really is a struggle, but some might have a better handle on it. This woman posting an adorable photo with her cats and dogs sitting around the Christmas tree. I love that. And those are your headlines.
All right. Good stuff. Love it. Jed? If you have last-minute Christmas shopping to do, look no further than Bass Pro Shops and Cabela's. You can even meet Santa while you shop for the hottest deals.
Meet Santa for free. Bass Pro Shops and Cabela's. Alan Treadwell joins us now with all the details. Alan, thanks for being here.
Oh, it's my pleasure to be here. You know, at Bass Pro and Cabela's, we feel like we have the best Santa experience out there. You know, and if you want to go visit Santa's Wonderland and get your kids their free photo with Santa, we urge you to do that. I mean, just a couple of weeks ago, I took my daughter there. She's 8 months old for the first time, sat on Santa's lap and got her picture with Santa.
There she is.
Yeah,
beautiful.
Yeah, she's a cutie.
Beautiful.
She's a cutie.
Adam has a good idea for the tattoo, though.
Oh, yeah. Well, I like my Santa like I like my SoundCloud rappers, and that's a lot of face tattoos. So maybe like a milk and a cookies underneath his eyeballs.
Milk cookies.
Milk
All right, let's get through the products. We got a whole bunch here.
Yeah, so we got some great gifts for the kids, especially. We got a jumbo play set. It's got everything, trucks and UTVs that they can play with. RC truck. I mean, who doesn't want a remote control car? It's decked out with
that for myself.
True Timber camo, Bass Pro logos. We got great stocking stuffers in our watches. They're 50% off right now, so they're less than $10. So you can throw those in the stockings. They're great little gifts. And shoes, right? Everybody needs some shoes, and we have great sales on boots going on.
Wow, these are great.
All different types. The rubber boots that you're holding there, work boots, the cowboy style boots or hiking boots. And what little kid wouldn't love to see one of those underneath the tree?
A bike? I didn't know Bass Pro Shops had bikes. Can I take this for a spin?
Get up there,
get up there and take this for a little ride.
Frozen bikes.
Yeah, we have a couple different kinds of frozen bikes for the little girls.
I was disappointed as a kid. I never got to.
Yeah, so for that person that's hard to buy for on your list, our Bass Pro Shop gift cards are rated #1 by Scripps.
It's just the right size.
For over 10 years. It's because they never expire, and you can use them anywhere. You can use them online, in the stores, at any of our restaurants. You can use them at Big Cedar or Big Cypress Lodges.
Wow.
So it's great for that person that's hard to buy for.
All right,
now
what
he's
about
going to get the bike. I want the car.
Yeah.
Exactly. The car is awesome. And speaking of cars, we have an ultimate giveaway going on right now. So you can register online. You can register at the stores. And we're giving away a Toyota Tacoma TRD truck to one lucky winner. Yeah.
It's good stuff.
So how do you win?
So you go to the stores to register. You can register online. You talk about a great gift to have this cool truck underneath the tree.
Super cool.
I would love to win it.
I
Yeah.
don't know how you get underneath the tree, though.
They'll figure it out.
Big tree.
Big tree.
Yeah, you got a big tree right down the street.
That's right. I agree.
All right,
Alan,
check it
thanks
out,
a lot.
BassProShops.com.
Good stuff. All right, well, a Fox News alert. Protests still heating up in Paris for the 5th straight weekend. We're live on the ground with that next.
And it's been 15 years since Ruben Studdard and Clay Aiken were on the American Idol stage together.
The winner of American Idol 2003 is Ruben